reaction is very positive, very good. I mean, Primordial album doesn't come along every year or even 18 months. It's usually every 3 to 4 years. So we kind of try and have a quality, not quantity approach to making music. And also people have their lives and other things to get along with. And by the time you come to the end of maybe the odd tour or 2 festival seasons, and you know, it's so it's a couple of years since the previous one before, but it's just the way things are. The reaction is very strong, very positive. Maybe some people feel the album is a bit more direct, a bit bigger, a bit more, how we say, more of a complete listen in some senses than the last one. I don't know. I mean, we just concentrated at the time. I think the most important thing is, you know, when you're 8 albums in or been playing for however many years, is to try and step outside of the bubble of what you're doing and be able to objectively view things creatively and say, do you still have energy? Do you still have something to say? Do you still have the ability to simply sound like you mean it? And so I think we achieved that. So
how can you do that after 20 years of playing music?
Because you never stop hating.
Okay.
No. I think what it is it's an understanding of the very atavistic, visceral nature of heavy metal, in the sense the transfer of energy and the relationship to the originals that made you love this kind of music, and to be able to see that in what you do as well. And also just, we never really got burnt out. We never ended up being rock stars. We never went through an electronic period and got a female singer and too much coke and ended up, oh, you know, we're back to our roots and blah, blah, blah. We just always just forged our own path and never really paid any attention to whatever was happening outside of that, you know. It's a combination of things. I think that Redemption at the Puritan's Hand was maybe a bit too complicated for some people, and often I think of the name like right when the album is finished, but this time I wanted to have a working title that we were working under to have a kind of a head start on the art, and the art this time was much more important and much more dynamic, to have a photo involved and all that stuff. I think the basic message somehow is the album started by me looking back at the late 19th century, bizarrely enough starting at the Chicago World Fair in like 1894, and the fact that they built a city within a city, and at that time they were looking at the next century as going to be a potential century of scientific wonder, of economic prosperity, of incredible advancements in humankind, which of course it was, but on the other hand it was a century of uninterrupted bloodshed and invasions and one nation state conquering another and establishing a line in the dirt and for no particular reason, and 2 world wars. And so I kind of thought that 1990 to 2000 and a bit, apart from the Balkan Wars, was an era of unrivaled prosperity, in a sense, for the new and emerging European middle class, and how now, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've descended. We reached an economic collapse which has crippled nations. We're witnessing the rebirth of religious fundamentalism. You know, ISIS or IS a mile from the border of Turkey to. I think that in such dark times, people are turning we're turning the world back, the clock back to a more ignorant time, and you can see, yeah, I think we're somehow in this de-evolving stage, and personally I don't really see any way out of it. And the album ends with "We'll Be Lightning to Split the Sun," which is a sort of uplifting song with a very natural theme about the animal and man, but the rest of the album, you know, for example, Seed of Tyrants takes the Arab Spring, which a lot of naive people in the West viewed as a season of hope, and it says you remove the tyrant's head and 12 will rise to take even more lives with even more bloodshed. So it's like a fist in the face of any optimism. It's just pure, naked, virulent opposition. I remember hearing on the radio in Ireland, maybe not for this album, but for the last album, a newscaster, and he was saying, we in the West must face up to our collective responsibility for what's happened in Haiti. And I just thought to myself, you know, fuck you. I don't remember sending a tsunami or whatever it was to Haiti. I don't remember doing that. I don't see any reason why I should inherit misdeeds or deeds for things that happened 100 years ago, or natural disasters aren't the fault of white Europeans. Yeah, it's complicated because obviously if you take the Middle East, Europe has an incredibly complex part to play in, you know, propping up Shahs and propping up families and religious figureheads who ostensibly were tyrants, you know. But having said that, you know, I was arguing this the other weekend. If you look at the birth of IS, it comes from Wahhabism, you know, which is a fundamental religious belief that goes back to the 19th century, which has nothing to do with what people in the West were doing. You know, it's a fundamental difference that I think too many people are they want to create a very simple line. It's okay. I'll only be a minute. I think that people want to create a too simple line, a linear line between two problems and say this is black and white. And I don't mean black and white, I mean a black and white problem, and this is one is the answer and this is the solution. But very often history and culture exists in a grey area in between, where there are so many coefficients that go together to make up a disaster or a problem, that it just doesn't, it's not so easy as to say, here you are, Europeans are the problem because of this, this, and this, this is the other. You know, so complicated answer, but and it's a complicated question. So the answer is, in some ways yes, and in some ways very much no. And either side who tries to tell you one is an absolute truth is wrong. The West didn't create Wahhabism. You know, this is something that the Saudi royal family have allowed to grow and was being taught in mosques all across Europe for the last 30, 40 years, you know. But what were those mosques built with but American petrochemical dollars after the 1972 or 74, 72, 72 oil crisis. So, you know, it's, yeah.
79 in Iran.
Yeah, and you know the Shah coming back in 79, and then the Iran Iraq war. Yeah, you know, it's in Afghanistan, and it's too complicated. It's too complicated to put into a fucking 140 word GIF or meme that people who don't read articles, that don't know anything about history, can just go share, share, share. Oh, I'm somehow or emotionally involved in a cause because I just went share, like, you know. Anyway, sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Between 98 and 2004, 2005, and it's just unfortunate that we don't tour as much anymore, and the tours that we've been part of, they don't even go to the south of France. So if once that geographical chain is broken between, for example, the south of France, bands don't come to Spain and Portugal, and that's the reason why they just go another date in Switzerland or another date in Austria. And we don't book tours, we don't organize the dates, but tours follow economic circumstances, and unfortunately Portugal is in a difficult place. Even for us, you know, coming here, there was no direct flight. Like there's no direct flight. Little bastards, don't film them. See what I have to put up with, you know, multitasking. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, even on the, it's hard to go from, you cannot fly from Dublin direct to Porto. It's just not possible. When did that happen? How did that happen? Two capital cities cannot be linked in one day. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. They're good people. We have a good personal relationship with them. We're allowed to do whatever we want. I mean, artistically, creatively, I mean, they know they're not going to get an album every year. They know we can't do 45-day tours anymore. Primordial is what it is. We sell a bit more, and you're right, the industry has changed, and the underground is moving up, and some of the decisions by the overground are moving down, and some of the differences between the two. Yeah, I mean, there are some bands who will sell more on Van Records than they would on Nuclear Blast, for example. You know, it's a complex thing. You know, I mean, a lot of it is up to a band to help themselves as well.
You have to work more. No?
Yeah, you do. You have to be able to. You have to be able to be in charge of your social networking. I mean, this is if you give a fuck about any of that stuff. It's not what you have to do. You don't have to tweet. Well, we have history.
Yeah, of course.
We have a history. Yeah, we have a history to rely on. We have a solid. I'll just be a minute, boy. We have a solid fan base of whatever, like 20,000 people who will buy something by us, no matter what, and then the thousands on top are kind of like floating voters, you know, maybe 20, 25,000, whatever. So after that, it moves up and down a little, but we have history and people sort of trust us. So for a new band, it's fucking hard. And to capture a youth who have a short attention span, most bands unfortunately seem to try and do it with gimmickry and novelty. Unless they're serious stuff, like this sounding band behind us, they could do it completely on their own terms. For example, a band like who you've never heard of, and then you look on their Bandcamp and you're like, fucking hell, this band sells 10,000 records or 10,000 digital sales, or, you know, there's no fast and easy way to do it. You could be signed to a big label tomorrow and get back your sales statement and go, fuck, we sold 1,612 CDs. It's kind of fucked, you know. We've just spat on your microphone. You might has AIDS now or Ebola or whatever. It's what's the current scare disease? Ebola, is it?
Ebola, no, maybe yesterday. No, today I don't know.
Find out. Look up how many people died of Ebola in the United States, and you will see it's probably none to 3.
Maybe -3.
And when you were there, when I was there in New York last November, just posters everywhere. Don't get Ebola. Don't go here. Don't go there. What was it before that? SARS, bird flu. Then there was an anthrax scare. Pig. Yeah. There you go. Well, Spanish flu. We don't want that one again. No. Anyway, yeah. It's nice to be back in Portugal again. We know it's going to kill. Hopefully it won't be so long before we come back, but we're here now, so all good. And if you just skip through all that crap, you know, it was all rubbish. You know, don't pay any attention. The world's going to fucking end anyway. You might as well drink another shot, have another line, whatever it is you're doing, just do it. All right, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
No problem.